What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs. Let's take a look at some mind-blowing facts about Portland, Oregon. I say mind-blowing facts for people not from these cities. If you're from whatever city we happen to do one of these videos for, chances are you know a few of the things on the list. Just because you know them doesn't mean the rest of the country does. I guarantee people in Maine know very little about Portland, Oregon, other than what they see on whatever news channel they happen to be watching. Or if they watched Portlandia, which that show is ridiculous, but it is pretty accurate to tell you the truth. Before we look at some of the facts about Portland, we're not going to be getting into the riots of 2020 or the homeless situation or our current chaos with the mayor and all that stuff. We're just talking about other things. There's tons of videos and information on the riots and homeless situation and the mayor out there. Go look it up if you want. Today we're just talking about some of Portland's weirdness. They've got a lot of it. All right, so buckle up. Let's take a look at 10 mind-blowing facts about Portland, Oregon. Number 10. More breweries than any other city. That's right, Portland, Oregon has more breweries than any other city in the United States. Keep in mind, we're not a giant city. We're what's considered a medium-sized city. Portland is home to over 70 breweries. Now, this whole thing started around 1984. It had been going on before, but the boom started around 1984 when both Bridgeport Brewery, which is now closed, and Windmere Brother Breweries opened up facilities in what's known as the Pearl District, not too far from where Henry Weinhardt's place was that started brewing back in the 1860s. Yes, we've been brewing beer a while here. It didn't stop there. You had places like McMinimans in 1985 that opened their doors to a brew pub in Southwest Portland. Now they have over 50 locations. And in Portland, almost every single weekend, there is some kind of beer festival. I've been to like the Dark Beer Festival. I've been to the Holiday Ale Festival, the Sabretooth Micro Fest. Most of these are kind of shut down this year and last year because of COVID, but hopefully next year we'll be back at it. Number 9. It's a vegan paradise. Portland has the largest number of vegetarian or vegan options in the United States. Portland is home to over 50 restaurants that are exclusively vegan or vegetarian with vegan options. Vegan, vegetarian, I don't know. There's a saying here in Portland, how can you tell a vegan in the room? They're the only ones that can't quit talking about them being a vegan. Honestly, run into a vegetarian, a vegan, whatever, and they can't quit talking about it. It is the strangest thing. Number 8. The world's largest naked bike ride. Yes, believe it or not, there's more than one naked bike ride in the United States, and I'm sure worldwide there's a bunch more too. The annual World Naked Bike Ride Day in Portland is the world's largest, with over 13,000 nude participants. Despite being against some of the public decency laws, it's allowed because it's been granted tradition status. When I first started this YouTube channel, I thought I'd go down there and do a vlog on it and stuff like that. Then it occurred to me I wasn't that talented at blurring things out, and it would just become too big of a pain, and I wasn't too sure how people would feel about me filming them while they're riding around naked. At first I was a little nervous, then I saw there was cameras everywhere. I did some filming. Maybe someday I'll put that video out, but I don't know how I'll do it without getting demonetized. It was a little uncomfortable when I saw two co-workers from Netflix there, and then later on I saw one of my bosses go by. That's when I learned she was living the hippie lifestyle, either that or she had a waxing phobia. Number 7. The Simpsons. I've talked about this one before on this channel, so it's probably not that much of a mind-blowing fact for a lot of you, but if you're new here, this is probably new information to you. Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons, is from Portland, Oregon. He grew up in an area called Goose Hollow, or around there someplace. He attended Ainsworth Elementary School and Lincoln High School before going on to college and starting a career as a cartoonist. Several of the Simpson characters are named after famous Portland streets or landmarks, including Flanders, Lovejoy, Powell, Quimby, and Kearney. Springfield, I've heard different stories on this one, but we have a Springfield not too far from Portland, Oregon. And a lot of people say he named it after that because he went there for some football game or something and the people were weird. Now, I heard that story, then I heard that wasn't true, but who knows? A lot of people like to take selfies in front of the different streets that he named his characters after. Number 6, the Shanghai tunnels. Yes, the tunnels under Portland, Oregon do exist. These are called the Shanghai tunnels, and they exist under Portland's downtown and Chinatown areas. The word Shanghai comes from the word Shanghaiing or whatever, but basically it means you kidnap someone, put them on a ship when they're drunk or whatever, and by the time they wake up, they're in the middle of the ocean, and the only way they don't get thrown off is if they work on the ship. So basically forced labor, kidnapping, slavery, whichever you want to call it. The tunnels were originally made to transfer goods from shore to ship and avoid traffic, but legend has it that they were used to, like I said, kidnap locals after a couple drinks. Some say the tunnels were also used as secret passageways to underground brothels, opium dens, and gambling houses. There's no real proof or documentation that these tunnels were used for Shanghaiing people. I mean, it was an illegal operation if it did exist. You know, people didn't really keep records of things like that. So it might just be old urban legend. Whatever it is, you could take tours of the Shanghai tunnels during normal times. I mean, pandemic days, most of that stuff's all canceled right now. Number 5, strange laws. Every state, every city has some blue laws that have been on the books forever, and a lot of times they're kind of strange. Portland takes that strange law thing to a new level. Now, as the comedian Dave Attell said, the reason we have laws is because someone was told not to do something many, many times. Knowing that, it's kind of alarming that in Portland, it is illegal to use duct tape as a seat belt or car seat for a toddler. You also can't yell profanity at wild or caged animals, so no dropping F-bombs to the elephants at the zoo. And your shoelaces must be tied while walking down the street in Portland, Oregon. Obviously, they're not going to be enforcing the shoe tying thing. It's just on the books for a frickin' reason. The duct tape, though, I totally get that one. And that just kind of shows you what kind of idiots we got floating around Portland, Oregon, when they're using duct tape as a seatbelt. Yelling profanity at animals. I mean, who hasn't gone someplace and screamed a dirty joke over the fence to a hyena? Number 4, the most strip clubs in the country. Yeah, that's right. Portland has the most strip clubs in the United States. We actually have 8.86 clubs per every 100,000 residents. And I can tell you firsthand, there are strip clubs everywhere in Portland. The next closest is Tampa. For all the chaos and all the nonsense that people hear about Portland, one thing they don't do is they let people kind of do what they want to do. We don't have a lot of restrictive laws for things like that. We also have the only vegan strip club on the planet. Yeah, it's called Casa Diablo. Number 3, a communist connection. Portland, Oregon has a direct connection with the old Soviet Union. That's right, Joseph Stalin's granddaughter and great-granddaughter live in Portland, Oregon. And the granddaughter, Charisse Evans, is an artist, writer, and antique dealer in Portland, Oregon. She runs an antique shop. What happened was, I can't even pronounce the name, but here it is, Svetlana. I don't even know. That's Stalin's only daughter. She defected from the Soviet Union in 1966 and married architect William Wesley Peters. They had the daughter, who's now Charisse Evans. So for all the people that hear that we're nothing but liberals here and socialists, we now have the trifecta by adding communism to the mix. Number 2, the St. Helens Quiet Zone. In 1980, when Mount St. Helens erupted, the blast was heard as far as British Columbia, Idaho, California, and even Montana, but not in Portland, Oregon, which was only 50 miles away from the eruption. Studies by the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry demonstrated a so-called quiet zone around Mount St. Helens that extended radially, so around it, as far out as 75 miles. How loud it was in other areas depended on a lot of different things like air temperature, air motion, the atmospheric layers, and local topography. If you talk to locals about this, which I have, it's really strange. Some of them say they heard it, and some of them say they didn't hear it. And we're talking about ones that were in Gresham, Oregon, which is a suburb, to a couple that were in downtown Portland. Science shows downtown Portland, you couldn't hear it. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There is a link down below. And also, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If this is your first time here, please subscribe. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, female strong. Portland and really the entire state of Oregon doesn't have a real great track record historically when it comes to racial issues. We're pretty much a racist state for a very long time. And I know that's a dog whistle for people that are going to leave comments about it still is. Okay. But normally, when you have a racist type atmosphere, it usually just doesn't extend to one group. It usually goes to other groups, like gender inequality. Portland has a great history of gender equality, as in the city was the home to the first sworn female officer in the country in 1908. That's right, Lola Baldwin was the first sworn in and hired female officer in the United States hired by Portland, Oregon. You had other ones that weren't really sworn officers or anything like that. They worked in different functions. I know Los Angeles had one about 3 years earlier than this, but she was the actual first one that went through training and was sworn in as a female officer. Portland also had the first elected female mayor to a major city in the country in the 1940s. Other places had, towns and stuff had female mayors prior to this, but this was the first big city in the United States to have an elected female mayor. At the time, Portland had a little over 325,000 residents. Currently, Portland, Oregon has double that from the 1940s with 658,000 residents, and almost 50% of the business owners in Portland are female. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.